Hi everyone, thank you for joining me today. My name is Grace Martin, and I'm going to be going over Merrill's Principles of Instruction for IDET 5305. In this presentation, I'm going to be going over an introduction of what the principles of instruction are, who is David Merrill, and a more in-depth explanation of the 5 principles of instruction. To begin, Merrill's Principles of Instruction is a learner-centered approach. All information conveyed to a learner is designed to be engaging and to give the learner opportunity to utilize new knowledge in everyday scenarios. The 5 principles that the design revolves around is the task, which is learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving real-world problems. Activation, where learning is promoted when existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge. Demonstration is learning is promoted when new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner. Application is learning is promoted when the new knowledge is applied by the learner. And integration is learning is promoted when new knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. All 5 of these are ways for students to be involved in problem-based learning, and it has a student-centered approach. Merrill's Principles of Instruction is designed to be used continuously in new learning, and one of the main advantages of this model is that it is very clear and concise, and it can be adapted to many learning experiences. It has also been researched and proven to be effective in improving learner engagement and retention. One of the disadvantages is that it is a design-only focus, so it's not suitable for all learners. Due to it being a design-only focus, it does not describe how learners acquire knowledge, and there's not a lot of room to do evaluation to fix performance gaps. What I mean by that is that many other instructional design models typically have stages that designers can look over the model and make sure that there aren't any performance gaps. And if there are any performance gaps, then they would have the opportunity to bridge the gap. But nonetheless, and this is still a very good model for different learners. The instructional researcher behind the Principles of Instruction is David Merrill. He is a highly respected educator and researcher. He has designed the framework for many different instructional design theories, but he is most well known for his contributions to the first principles of instruction, the component display theory, and the instructional transaction theory. He dedicated his career to finding instructional design theories, as he argued that the internet negatively affected the teaching programs. He also believed that students are motivated when they know what they are learning can be applied to real-world scenarios. Throughout the presentation, then, I'm going to be revolving each principle around high school students that are learning different budgeting methods. By using this idea, then it connects the need for problem-based learning and applying it to real-life scenarios. Each student will be expected to have an understanding of budgeting by the end of the lesson. Based on if they were to use the principles, then they will eventually be able to use this in everyday life. To begin, the first principle is the task, which is learning is promoted when learners are engaged in solving real-world problems. The students will be introduced to this idea of budgeting through a video that I have linked. It is a very informative video. It's an overview of different methods of budgeting and is a quick start to the lesson. I've chosen this video as it is engaging and easy to understand. Within Merrill's belief is that learners learn best when they are actively engaged. One of the main things that drew me to this video was that it is a crash course, so it's not long, which typically will be able to keep the students' attention, as many students are more engaged when they are learning through quick videos versus long ones. And in the presentation, the link can be clicked and it is a crash course called What is the Budget? It's only about 4 minutes long, so the students have a quick overview, and it's not one of the longer ones. The second principle is activation, where learning is promoted when existing knowledge is activated as a foundation for new knowledge. Students will be able to think back to information that they have previously learned and connect it to the new information. One of the best ways that students can start to recall previously learned knowledge is through a KWL chart, and KWL stands for know, want to know, and learned. They are able to use this chart to connect the knowledge that they have just learned to previously learned knowledge beforehand. Some things that students might connect to budgeting is thinking about the last time that they went to the store and bought something. It could be connected to students that receive an allowance and how they use their allowance, or even for students that don't have an allowance and rely on holiday money to get them throughout the year. Though each student will have a different perspective of money and budgeting, all students are expected to have some prior knowledge of a time that they had to budget. Linked in the presentation is an example of a KWL chart where students can fill out what they want to know, what they know, and what they have learned. The third principle is demonstration, where learning is promoted when new knowledge is demonstrated to the learner. For this principle, the teacher will be at the front of the classroom utilizing a whiteboard. And on the left-hand side of the whiteboard, the teacher will write down needs, and on the right-hand side, then he will write down wants. The teacher will be able to start placing things under the needs category, such as clothes, food, shelter, and on the right-hand side under the wants category, then they can put some examples such as makeup, toys, decorations. The teacher will begin by placing only a few needs and wants, so the students will begin to have an understanding of the differences. The students will be able to call out what they believe is a need or a want, and the teacher will write it on the board. By the teacher starting the class off with a couple of ideas, they are able to connect it to the things that they believe would be in these categories. The fourth principle is application, where learning is promoted when new knowledge is applied by the learner. During this principle, then the students can review and complete a worksheet that overviews financial budgeting. The students will be tasked with dividing their own needs versus wants to create a budget to move into their first apartment. Linked, then I have a worksheet that would be great for students to really dig deep into what goes into creating a realistic budget. By having the students complete this in high school, they are more likely to have it resonate with them, as some may be working already or even be looking to move out on their own. Students are not only looking at their monthly recurring cost, but what their beginning budget to think about furnishing an apartment and the down payment and anything else associated with the beginning cost of moving out. The idea of having the new knowledge resonate with them will lead us into our final principle, which is integration. Integration is where learning is promoted when new knowledge is integrated into the learner's world. After the lesson is concluded, the students will have a better understanding of budgeting. They will also be able to make smart financial decisions on their own outside the classroom. This principle takes the idea that students will take what they have learned and apply it to everyday situations. Though the activity is more so for older high school students, it can still be used for the 15 and 16-year-olds as they will begin to apply for jobs. And if they start off with knowing how to budget in the beginning, then they'll be able to use this in the future and just begin budgeting from the get-go once they start working. And here are all of my references for the presentation. And that concludes the presentation over the 5 principles of instruction. Thank you.